Hello and welcome back, folks, to yet another Brothers Blanchard franchise deep dive. And I'm going to start this one off with a very important announcement for everyone. I believe I lied to you last week because I told you, the audience, that our next deep dive was going to be the Scream franchise.
You did tell us that.
I did. That's exactly where I left it off, and sure enough, machinations have happened behind the scenes, folks. This is the very first, and the next episode will follow of our new series entitled "Everyone's Entitled to One Good Scare." Ooh. Where we're going to deep dive on the Halloween franchise. So, if you're not familiar with this, I am going to introduce myself. We're going to start this off proper. I am one half of the Brothers Blanchard. I am your host, Matthew Blanchard. With me, as always, is my brother,
Patrick J. Blanchard, the other half, since he mentioned that.
Right. And we go deep diving through horror franchises. We have plumbed the depths of Crystal Lake.
Yes.
We have wandered around every single possible Elm Street we can find. And then we went into the bayou to spend a little time with a little guy named Victor Crowley. But I figured it's time we headed up to Haddonfield to visit our old friend, the guy who started it all, Michael Myers. What do you think of that?
We gotta go big or go home at some point.
Exactly.
Everything we've been doing has been in preparation, I would think.
I would say so.
Not to say that Michael doesn't have some ups and downs.
Of course he does.
Some ins and outs.
In fairness, so do both Jason and Freddy. So the goal here was to make sure that we get the big three done. And here we are doing the biggest. And yet not necessarily the biggest if you look at it from another angle.
Nope.
You look at it from a profit angle, not so much.
At a profit angle, it is still Friday the 13th at the end of the day.
Well, I defy you to tell me that that's true with all the money that has been shoveled into the coffers of Anchor Bay with DVD release after DVD release.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying, we don't count that money. We don't look at those figures, but I'm willing to bet you if that money is counted,
well, but if
Halloween is the most profitable horror movie of all fucking time.
I won't deny that, because there's like 3 different Friday the 13th DVD Blu-rays.
3. 1, 2, 3. How many Blu-rays of Halloween are you aware of?
11 billion.
Right. How many are just sitting on my shelf over here?
4.
There's 2 over there, and 1 over there. So 3. Although technically that's a 2-disc set, which features one of those twice. So I guess yes, 4, even though one of them is the same version duplicated.
You don't have any of the DVDs still, do you?
No. Oh, no, I do not.
Okay.
No, all my Halloween DVDs. Folks, I'm a huge Halloween fan. I have purchased this franchise, in particular the first movie, the movie we're going to talk about today, John Carpenter's original Halloween, many, many, many times. Twice on VHS, 5 times on DVD, 1, 2, 3, 4 times on Blu-ray, and next week I will be purchasing it again on 4K Blu-ray.
Yep.
Yeah. So stay tuned, folks, for more thoughts on Halloween, because every time I watch it in a new format, I do pick something new up.
Yes. That is.
That's kind of the beauty of John Carpenter's cinematography, is there's something new every single time you look at it. Now, this is our franchise deep dive podcast, right?
Yes.
We do that a lot, and we're really good at that. The problem is, we have done this before. we've sat down to talk about Halloween.
Yes.
You and I on mic twice now, 3 times. This is the 3rd time, right?
I think this is our second time.
Second time, right. Yes, because we had a conversation about Noah and Gavin's on-air version, but we didn't actually record it.
It is our second time. Your third.
My 3rd, yes. Because last year for Halloween, we did a massive franchise conversation that covered the whole thing. Now, we're going to do that in a much more structured way.
Yes, which will allow for more time for each individual movie.
Exactly. Because we gave a lot of attention, like you should, to John Carpenter's original. And we'll do that again today, but in reality, I think I'm looking forward to talking about the other 9, soon to be 10, just in a few days.
Yes.
From when you're listening to this podcast, we're gonna get the new one. It's gonna be great. So let's kick it off with what started it all, the original, the best so far.
That's right, folks. We're here to talk about John Carpenter's The Babysitter Murders.
Yes, before it was given a much better title by Irwin Yablans.
I'm pretty sure if it were The Babysitter Murders, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it.
I completely agree with that. So for those of you out there who don't know, because we're assuming everyone does. I mean, this is a web community that started because of John Carpenter.
Yes.
So we kind of make assumptions. We kind of assume that you folks are with us and you know exactly what we're talking about. But Halloween begins in the aftermath of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's successful independent film, Assault on Precinct 13.
Which, if you haven't seen it, you're really doing yourselves a disservice.
Oh, God, yeah. You should totally check that out.
Don't check out the remake.
No.
Go check out John Carpenter's original. And then after, you can watch the remake.
Sure. Don't watch the remake until you see the original. And by the way, if you're new to the Halloween franchise, you've never sat down, you've never watched them all, watch the original before you watch the remake.
Same deal.
That's a lesson that goes across all the Brothers Blanchard deep dive movies. Except maybe the remake of Friday the 13th. I think you could actually start there if you wanted to.
Yes, that is.
I feel like you wouldn't lose anything.
That is the
one. It's the exception.
We've talked about that. Yes. Like you could. Somebody's got to be the outlier,
right? And Jason is nothing if not an outlier. But here we are, and we're talking about Michael. And where Michael begins is, he has a contract job, really.
Yes.
Which is somewhat different than what we're used to talking about anyways. Because we just talked about Victor Crowley for 4 weeks, and Victor Crowley is this long-term, sort of passion project of Adam Green's. Like, he invented that character when he was a small child. He loves that character. He carries him forward well into his adulthood and makes his career off of him.
And then Wes Craven developed his script years before it was shot.
Exactly.
And
also somewhat of a passion project. And, based on this sort of traumatic childhood trauma that he had with this creepy dude, John Carpenter's motives in Halloween are not nearly as focused on exorcising this sort of internal demon or creating or carrying forward a character he's always wanted to tell the story of. He gets hired to make a horror movie about babysitters. Like, that's flat out it.
And to John's credit, he wants to do as much as he can with what he has.
Yeah.
Utilizing every trick that he has learned in film school.
Exactly.
Deep diving into shadows and German expressionism, and just trying. He's trying to make, in 1978, a $10 million picture for $300,000.
And that's what I was about to say, because you just said the magic words, trying to make the most of what he has. And what he has is $300,000. Now, $300,000 today in filmmaking money is fucking nothing. In 1978, it was still fucking nothing.
Yes.
I mean, Kevin Smith makes Clerks for $27,000.
That's not a movie.
That's not a movie. That camera doesn't move. It's in black and white. It's on crappy film stock. Halloween is not. Halloween is the value of that $300 is stretched incredibly far.
Like it looks better than other horror movies from the 78 to 84 frame that spent 1.5 and 2 mil.
It looks better than stuff that came out 10 years later with newer film technology. Like, I mean, it just flat out does. It looks better than stuff that came out in 88, 89.
And
which put more money into the production and had better technology to create the visuals. And Halloween still looks better.
I believe it's because he treated it as a film when he came in.
Yeah.
It
wasn't an exploitation picture to him. He made a film.
Yep. He and producer Deborah Hill set out to make something that was going to change cinema. They felt they were changing cinema, and in many ways it did.
Oh, it flat out did. In ways that we have hinted about ever since we sat down to talk about Friday the 13th the very first time. Because you can't talk about Friday the 13th without talking about Halloween.
And we talked about
you can't talk about Halloween in some ways without talking about Friday the 13th. Like, we'll reference Jason again. He's the one who'll never leave us alone.
Because in many ways, without the two of them, there is no slasher genre.
No, not at all. Not at all. They are the Romulus and Remus of the Rome of slasher movies, if you will.
I'll totally allow that.
Yeah. Yeah, see, he thought I was going to go like they're the mother and father of horror. No, I'm not going to do that shit. That doesn't... No. They're the two brothers who founded Rome. Okay. So, John and Deborah are hired. There's not a lot of money. In fact, when they're hired, when they're originally pitched, there's no money.
Yes.
Because Irwin Yablans he's a distributor.
Yep.
And
we have spent a lot of time in our deep delves talking about distribution.
Yep.
And the role it plays in filmmaking, and the way it did in the 70s and 80s that it no longer does.
Yeah. And the climate that Irwin Yablans is looking to fill Halloween with is exactly what Sean Cunningham looks at and sees as the opportunity to expand beyond just being a distribution house to being a content creator and distributor.
Yes.
And it's the same thing that Bob Shea looks at doing, the same thing that leads ultimately to Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just that Irwin Yablans gets there first. Because Irwin Yablans, unlike Sean Cunningham, doesn't think... He's not a filmmaker himself. He does not have the delusion that he can do this himself.
No.
He just knows he can put a producer and a director together and get a film that he can put out there. Okay?
The only thing that he's lacking is the success of Halloween.
Exactly.
And it's that success that leads, like we talked about in Camp Crystal Lake, to Paramount going, to Frank Mancuso Sr. going, I'm going to release it nationwide.
Right. And it's Frank Mancuso doesn't release Friday the 13th nationwide on the strength of Friday the 13th.
No.
He releases Friday the 13th nationwide on the strength of John Carpenter's Halloween.
Playing regionally.
Exactly. So Yablans creates the environment that allows for the creation of the Friday the 13th franchise and then Jason Voorhees, which creates the environment that allows for the creation of Freddy Krueger. It literally, at least in terms of what we've been talking about on this podcast, it all starts right here. And it starts with the idea of Irwin Yablans going, I think I can get a cheap picture out there. I can fill a void.
I gotta find a financier.
I gotta find a financier, and I gotta find somebody who can make a movie. Okay, I saw this movie by this guy John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. Hey, I want you guys to make a movie. Okay.
I'll only make it if I get Final Cut and my name above the title. That's what they've taught me in film school. That's what the end result is. That's what I want. Well,
okay.
If you can make a movie for $300,000 or less, or whatever I can get you, you can have that.
So then Yablans goes and finds Mustafa Akkad, who is a filmmaker in his own right, he's off in the desert making this epic picture of his own.
Which is hemorrhaging money.
Oh, losing fucking money, like day by day. However, he's making that movie for Dino De Laurentiis, which is gonna fuel this whole thing into sequels, but it's not gonna get us there yet. So they come in and they ask this financier, director, producer for some money, and he's prepared for a pitch. He's prepared. Okay, they want a couple mil, and Yablans is like, no, 300,000. That's all we need. 300,000.
And Akkad's like,
No.
John Carpenter, you can make a movie for $300,000? That's what I lose in a day on the picture that I'm making right now.
Yep. And Carpenter says, yes, I can do it, and I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this. And Akkad is kind of flabbergasted, and he says, what's the movie? And as he had told it up until his untimely demise, they said that the story of the movie is about a babysitter being stalked by the boogeyman. And immediately the word babysitter jumped out to him.
Everybody knows what a babysitter is.
Exactly. So he threw in 300,000 right then and there. Boom, sight unseen. Let's make this movie. And now we're off to the fucking races. Thing is, we don't even have a script yet.
No.
We just have a concept. So John and Deborah go off and they write Halloween. And it's sort of a two-tier process. They each layer in sections of the script.
Deborah handles the youthful teen girl element, trying to keep it as real as possible to something that she herself is not that far removed from.
Exactly.
Because she's like 26 at this point.
Yep. And so she'd been a babysitter, and she had babysitter stories, and she had, the kind of things that terrify teenage girls in her head. It's all kind of there. And then you have John Carpenter, who is, he's not, we don't know he's John Carpenter yet, but he's John fucking Carpenter even then.
Yes.
So he writes all the stuff about evil.
Like,
the nature of evil.
If you totally want to explore Carpenter Revisited,
yeah,
you can totally hit. His greatest films are about the depiction of evil.
Yep. And the sort of the nihilism of losing yourself to the evil. These themes are discussed by people who have delved much deeper in that regard than you and I can right now.
Yes.
So if you're here at the Movie Arc and you haven't gone and listened to Carpenter Revisited, the flagship podcast that launched this vessel, hosted by our cousins, Gavin and Noah Blanchard. Go explore. It is worth your time. It's worth your time just to, even if it wasn't our cousins, even if it wasn't our own podcast network, I would say it is definitely worth your time to go and listen to sort of the arc of John Carpenter's career.
Yes.
Which, again, gets kicked into the stratosphere with Halloween. So Deborah and John, they write Halloween.
They got a script.
They got a script. They've got a budget. They've got They've got film school friends who they're going to reach out to work with them. And some of these people, you hear their names in 1978 and you're like, who the fuck is that? And you hear their names in 1988 and you're like, what? Specifically, Dean Cundey.
Yes.
Dean Cundey, who is the director of photography or cinematographer on Halloween, who goes on to be the DP/cinematographer for Steven fucking Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis.
And
Like, he lenses John
the
Carpenter's
Future.
Halloween, but he also lenses Back to the Future and Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones. Like,
And-
boom, boom, boom.
And one of them, and this is goes hand in hand with why this movie can be made for
Yeah.
$300,000. Is yes, he is a great cinematographer, and he's
One of the best.
He's developing here, and he's got this great look. Mm-hmm. But the real reason they went with him was affordability, because he had his own equipment.
He had his own equipment. He was cheap. He was a friend. And that is how you get there. But this is a man who literally has one of the best eyes on the planet.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg thinks so. Boom. And he had that in 78. Someone had to give him a chance.
I know.
John Carpenter.
And I
And it-
can't get away from my side of it, since I've
Yeah.
been doing so many financial corners down through our
Well-
deep delves.
Well, save the... If you
No,
have
no, no.
financial corner data, you save it till the end.
No,
'cause
what I'm saying is-
still our show.
by him having his own equipment,
Right.
That's in '78. That's what, a $50,000 to $75,000 save.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. And it's that kind of savings that's going to make this work.
Yes.
Okay. And what he brings to the table in terms of his own equipment, because he has some. And, of course, they do rent other equipment.
Yes.
But what he really brings to the table is this very experimental concept called the Panaglide, which is Paramount's version of the Steadicam before the Steadicam gets developed.
Yes.
Panaglide is first, and it's basically just a harness that straps to the cameraman with a counterbalance weight on an armature, so that the camera, instead of being on a tripod and stationary or over the cameraman's shoulder and shaking as it moves, remains steady and can move through a tracking shot without having to lay down dolly track.
Which
Is timely. It's time consuming. It's costly. You can spend a day laying down track for a shot that just moves from one location to another and back.
yes, like you're talking 40 feet of track.
Yep.
And a tracking shot that just goes back and forth on that track on the dolly, and you're looking at 10, 12 hours worth of work
Exactly.
for a 45-second
For
shot.
a 45-second shot. But here, using the Panaglide, and it's, Cundey demonstrates the Panaglide to Carpenter, and Carpenter immediately jumps on board because this thing is genius. It frees him up. It frees him up to compose a shot on the fly. Now,
Yes.
I know John Carpenter's process because I've seen him talk about it 1,000 times in commentary tracks and stuff like that. He still does a great deal of pre-planning. But the ability to step outside of that and improvise and compose beyond what you actually have sitting there in a storyboard, it really frees him up in a way that without it, Halloween would look a lot like Friday the 13th, frankly.
Well, it's one of the things that we've talked about down through our deep delves.
Yeah.
But we've gotten a little away from it because we hit on it way early. Film is a collaborative process.
Yes, it is.
More than any other art.
Exactly.
And so he does this great deal of pre-production work. He's got storyboards, but now you can get so much inspiration on set
On the day.
on location, talking to the DP, who has a completely off-the-wall, crazy idea, bridging off of your storyboards that changes everything. But in the old system with the tripods and everything, it would take too long to explore that idea.
Exactly.
So we like you said, we got the Panaglide, and we can just boom roll with it.
Yep. And we can improvise. We can do things on the fly. And that ability to sort of, roll with the punches on this film really frees up Carpenter as a director. It frees up actors because there's not a lot of, big dolly track around. There's not a lot of massive camera setups where the camera's stationary. The camera's built to move, so the lighting is modular. It's built into the locations. It's not lit like a sound stage.
No.
So you can easily do a turnaround and shoot a reversal within an hour instead of having to redress a room to turn around the camera and take 4 hours. So it's freeing. It's freeing for the process. So it's that one little piece of magic changes what this film could have been drastically. And then we get to the important part. They got to cast this movie.
Yes.
So they start looking out there for. I mean, they've got 2 really powerhouse roles that they have to cast. They have to cast the crazy doctor who's hunting the white whale that is Michael. The Shape, who is the Shape. He's not yet Michael Myers.
Yes.
And they have to cast the Shape's intended victim. And who do you cast? Well, they want a name. And they want a specific name for Loomis. And they reach out to him, and he says no. So they reach out to somebody else.
And
They initially reached out to Peter Cushing, who had just a year earlier been Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars.
Yep.
Who maybe felt that a smaller picture than Star Wars was maybe a little bit beneath him. But the initial idea was to cast him for his, for that great body of work he has in those Hammer horror films. And effectively, he would be playing
a new version of Van Helsing.
Exactly. So that made some sense. But he said no. So they instead reached out to Donald Pleasance.
Well, you're skipping.
Well,
one.
I am skipping one because they also went to Christopher Lee.
Because it's like, oh well, if we can't get Van Helsing, let's get Dracula.
Exactly.
And Christopher Lee also said no.
Christopher Lee wisely, I think, said no. I don't think Loomis would have been a boon to Christopher Lee's career. I don't think Christopher Lee would have been a boon to Halloween.
I know.
I love Christopher Lee.
There is a point in the 90s, late after H2O.
Yeah.
In between H2O and Count Dooku, where he said that his biggest regret is that he said no to John Carpenter.
Well, I mean, it should be. But, I love Christopher Lee. I come from Tolkien world, so I mean, Christopher Lee is special to me. Even before I count any other connection to Christopher Lee as a fan. I mean, he was the one person who was dying to be in a Lord of the Rings movie from the time Tolkien was still alive in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he's Scaramanga. And he's Dracula. And he's Sherlock Holmes. You can't beat it.
Nope.
So I would love Christopher Lee to be in this movie, but I don't think he's Loomis. I could see Peter Cushing as Loomis.
Yes.
I just can't see Christopher Lee as Loomis. Then they reach out to Donald Pleasance. And Donald Pleasance says yes. Because his kid liked Assault on Precinct 13.
Not even liked Assault on Precinct 13.
Liked the music in Assault on Precinct 13,
Yeah.
which was also composed by a little guy named John Carpenter,
Yeah.
who goes on to compose the music, the most iconic film score of all time, the music for Halloween. And then we get to what is inarguably stunt casting. Everyone admits it's stunt casting.
And oddly enough, it's the second stunt casting.
Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah.
the Laurie Strode is the ingenue who's being pursued as the target
Yeah.
of the boogeyman. She
Yep.
is the quintessential babysitter.
Yep.
And the part was originally went to June Lockhart's daughter.
Yes.
June Lockhart was the mother on Lassie. Her daughter was tied up in shooting Battlestar Galactica, of all things.
Yep.
And accepted the part originally, but then got parts added on in Battlestar Galactica and could not commit
To doing Halloween.
to doing Halloween. So then becomes the big stunt casting.
Well, I mean, it sets the tone for the stunt casting, right? It's like, okay, well, we went after June Lockhart's daughter. Ooh, another daughter. That's a great idea. Who's got a daughter who's like really? Ooh, wait. I know. Janet Leigh has a daughter. She was just in an episode of The Love Boat. She was actually pretty good. So they go to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
And it saves their fucking picture. I don't know that this movie works without Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. I don't know that this movie works without Donald Pleasance as Sam Loomis.
Yes.
Those two pieces of casting are more important than any other thing in this movie. Anything. I love Nick Castle as the Shape in that Michael Myers mask, doing his thing. But a stuntman could have done that. 9 other movies showed us that's possible.
Yes, and even some of the iconic things of Michael are not Nick Castle.
Right.
Like the breaking of the closet that we will talk about. That's Tommy Lee Wallace.
Right. So, I mean, that's... Someone else could have done that. Totally. I love Annie, and I love Linda. I love all these characters. Someone else could have played them.
In fact,
People almost did.
some people almost did. Like Bob was almost played by... Dennis
Quaid.
Dennis Quaid flew right out of... Dennis Quaid flew right out of my head, folks.
How do you lose Dennis Quaid?
And I've seen him on 3 commercials today.
Oh, yeah.
The same commercial.
I actually approve of these commercials.
I do too, because it's Dennis Quaid.
It's Dennis Quaid, and it's Dennis Quaid being Dennis Quaid, and I kind of like it.
The reason why Dennis Quaid was almost apart because he was dating / married
Yes.
to PJ Souls at the time.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, but it's other people could have played those roles. They're not as important. I mean, they're just as important to the story, and these actors are just as important to the amazing chemistry of this film. But the DNA of the film is fundamentally altered if you remove Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a whole different movie that doesn't congeal the same way it does with them. Whereas I can see other versions of the movie working with someone else's Annie or someone else's Linda or someone else's Bob or someone else's Marion Chambers, and I can see it.
But it solidifies around those two.
Exactly. Exactly.
And solidifies a way around Jamie Lee Curtis, who is acting and playing completely against type.
Oh, yes.
And
the only time she does in the role of Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
Because we'll revisit her 3 times. We'll revisit her 3 times before we revisit her in the new movie. And each of those 3 times she's basically playing Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Even in number 2, where she's, kind of out of it because she's all drugged up, she's still a slightly more outgoing on type Laurie.
Yes.
This is not that. This is probably her finest hour as an actress because she is so far against type, and she's so deep in this character, more so than I think any character I've ever seen her as. Like this is, I know it's weird to say that her big break was her finest hour, but I think it really was. I think that's why she keeps coming back to it every 20 years.
She also has said that she feels that it was the most she was given as an actress until she got True Lies.
Yeah.
Jumping even ahead of A Fish Called Wanda.
I can see that. There's a lot of meat to the role of Laurie Strode. I mean, there just is. Even though she is just a stock character who is being chased by the boogeyman. But she's a stock character being chased by the boogeyman who is forthright, who has, agency in ways that other slasher movie characters don't. Like she's got a lot going on.
Yep.
A lot going on.
Excuse me.
Speaking of a lot going on, there's a lot going on in the plot of this movie. And I, unlike our previous encounters, I don't have a shit ton of notes because I think I know this movie by heart. I may be fooling myself, but I don't think so. I think I have this movie damn near memorized. I don't know. Is it necessary to do a blow-by-blow plot walkthrough of this? I don't know that it is. Like, I think we've done that to death.
Like,
been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
That's number 2. That is number 2.
I know.
No, if I were to do a plot, if I were to take the plot, I'd say, so this movie starts off in 1963. We get a POV shot of this innocuous suburban home. Mm-hmm.
Two-story house.
Somebody is stalking through this house.
Yes.
There's a teenage girl and her boyfriend. The boyfriend leaves. Somebody comes in the house, grabs a big,
really big, sharp chef's knife.
Big, huge knife. Goes upstairs, kills the girl.
Yeah, stabs her a bunch of times.
Comes outside. We get the POV shot reversed, and oh my God, it's a little kid. Like, this had to have been one of the most shocking things in 1978.
Oh, totally.
Like, it was diluted by the time that I saw it in 96.
Oh, yes. By the time we got to it, it's...
Because I knew the story.
Right.
But it was... it had to have been a big, big, shocking reveal.
Totally.
And then...
Sorry, I just PJ sold that.
Totally.
I was like, totally.
And then, next thing is, we jump ahead. 15 years later.
Yes.
October 30th, we've got... A psychiatrist.
We don't necessarily know he's a psychiatrist right away.
Through the
dialogue we discover. But we have this young woman and this older man who are in a car in a storm, and we learn that they're headed toward a
sanitarium.
A sanitarium. It's flat out called a sanitarium. I don't need to.
And they're going to transfer an inmate.
An inmate named Michael Myers. And it's important to note that while we hear that name, that name doesn't exist in the script. He's not Michael Myers. He's the Shape. He's this formless, faceless void of a killer. So what they're doing is they're transporting Michael to Hardin County to stand trial because it's.
It's the law. He is now going to
it is the law.
He is now going to stand trial at 21 for the murder that he committed at the beginning of the movie at age 6.
Exactly. So what they're going to do is they're going to take him, they're going to pump him full of Thorazine and put him in front of the judge so he can't say anything. So they'll just send him right back. That's the goal.
Michael's got different plans.
Michael's got very different plans.
Because
I think that's our catchphrase.
That should be the catchphrase.
If you remember, when we did the Fridays, I was like, and then it gets worse. But this one is really, and Michael has other plans.
So they pull up. It's in the rain. It's at night, and the inmates, whatever you want to call the people who are in the sanitarium.
Well, I mean, that's what they call them in the movie.
Yes.
They call them inmates.
They are out wandering at night. Loomis the doctor in the car is like, the nurse is like, why did they let them out? He's freaking out. He goes to investigate. Michael steals the car, drives away, and the evil is gone from this place. Loomis is vindicated. Boom. It's Halloween. We're back in Haddonfield.
And we go from, and it's very interesting because we go from this somewhat eerie shot of a suburban city, of a suburban house. That's where we start. The 63 footage is kind of eerie.
Yes.
It's unsettling. The house is not shot at an angle that makes it look normal and appealing. It looks other. It is othered by the way it's shot. And then we're almost in pitch black
With the rainstorm.
with the rainstorm shot. So much so that even though they're using a tow car and towing this station wagon that they're in, the rest of what's around them is so unlit and we can't see any of the rain that they may as well have just parked the fucking car in the dark and it wouldn't have mattered. And we don't really see the inmates wandering around. We see these sort of white shapes because it's so dark.
Yes, we don't know that they're the inmates until we are told they're the inmates.
And we see this sort of ghastly lit ghoul of a person jump through the frame of the back of the rear view windshield and onto the top of the car. It's this garish lighting, and it's establishing this sort of almost gothic look to a movie that goes away the second we get to the next title card. This is a monster movie, and then no, it's not. It is the brightly lit fucking suburbs. The nondescript, brightly lit, anywhere America fucking suburbs. And that is where this movie becomes brilliant. That is where John Carpenter takes the very simple nature of this movie and says, nope, this is something elevated, something different, something bigger. By saying, nope, this is your neighborhood. This is your house. This is where you live. And that's what sells this.
Yes.
But back to sort of...
So,
and I think we cover this very briefly because everyone knows this.
Yes. So then we're in Haddonfield. We get our ingenue, our leading lady.
Yes.
She is coming out of her house carrying her books. She's called back by her dad. Her dad's telling her, hey, don't forget to drop the keys off at the Meyer place. I got somebody coming to see it tonight. Obviously, he's a realtor.
He's a realtor. He's selling this house called the Myers house. And Lori, she's like a 17-year-old girl. She's a babysitter. On the way to the Myers house, she meets up with a little boy who she constantly babysits named Tommy Doyle. And Tommy says she's not supposed to go up to the Myers house. You're not supposed to go up there. That's the spook house.
And then she's like, no, she's got permission. It's her dad. It's her job. She goes. She drops the keys off. Then there's a stinger.
And we see the shadow of a man looking at her through the window.
And he sees her. And really, that's the main...
That's it.
That's it. That's the plot. He's now got his target. He's the babysitter killer. He's the boogeyman.
And he's going to stalk this girl throughout the rest of the film. And there's your plot. That's it. It's that simple.
Yes. He shows up outside her. She's in class. He shows up outside.
Yep.
She sees him out the window. Twigs her out a little bit. She walks home with her friends, and they're talking about it. And there's even a tweak to this. It's not gothic, but we're going to show you menace in daylight. You're going to be scared walking down the street in the middle of the afternoon.
Yep.
Boom. She spots him. He goes out of frame. He disappears. Nobody else sees him. Was he really there? She goes home. She changes. Her friend comes and picks her up. They go to babysit.
She does see him through her own window down amongst the clotheslines below of the neighbor's yard. And then he vanishes again. And he continues to follow her. He follows her and her friend down the road, and this is where our psychiatrist really re-enters the story.
Yep.
We saw a bit of there was a brief moment with him, sort of an interlude, but he's back now, and he's meeting up with the sheriff because he feels that Michael Myers, the Shape, is returning to Haddonfield.
Yep.
And he wants the sheriff to work with him to figure out what's going on. So now we have sort of these two areas of approach. We have the sheriff and Dr. Loomis, who are going to go off and explore Haddonfield and talk about Michael Myers and try to track him down. And then we have Laurie and Annie, who are babysitting at two adjacent houses.
Yep.
Other players will come in and out. Annie is played by Nancy Loomis, who is also named Nancy Stevens.
Or Nancy Keys.
She has a lot of stage names, and she changes her name, and it's cool. It's whatever. And we already talked about Linda, who is
PJ Souls.
Who is totally awesome.
Totally.
Who will show up to try to use the house that Annie is babysitting at to have sex with her boyfriend Bob. And it at this point is really just sort of tracing the stalking back and forth as Michael, the Shape, plays a game with Laurie by killing Laurie's friends.
I know. I had a shot that squeaked me out.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. This day, there are scenes in Halloween that you catch Michael Myers in a place you never saw him before, and it gets you. It just gets you.
That's
it's
what
like,
happened to me.
Oh shit, that's his face right there. He was watching Annie in that scene, and I never knew it.
That is exactly what I was.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, every time I watch it, I catch something new like that.
And
I've been watching this movie like on a fucking loop for 20 plus years.
This was the first time I spotted something new in a while.
Right.
And it was literally, when she's locked in the laundry room and she's calling to Lindsay in the house. She's in focus in one window and he's barely in focus, out of focus. In the window behind her, just to her left.
Very, very barely in focus. Yes, I saw that for the first time when I bought the Blu-ray. Yeah. And we talked about this when we did our sort of 3-hour mega podcast. Yeah. That's what I like about seeing it in new formats is you do catch things. Like in that scene, that opening sequence we talked about, there's a shot very, very early in that sort of tracking shot where you see through the window.
Yes.
And you see the boyfriend and Judith Myers sitting there. And you don't see that in the VHS version because it doesn't have the fidelity to catch, the sort of very thin images of these outlines of these people. And you're like, oh my God, he was watching them before we even saw him see them.
Like
it's amazing.
So we got the two girls dropping off to babysit the kids.
Yes. Laurie goes off to babysit Tommy, who we already knew. And Annie goes across the street to babysit little Lindsay Wallace. Lindsay Wallace, who is just has no concern about anything that's going on.
At all. She just wants to watch her movies, man.
She just wants to watch her fucking movies. She wants
to
watch Dr. Demento.
And eat popcorn.
And she is the low-maintenance kid.
Meanwhile,
Tommy is the high-maintenance kid.
Because he wants to know about the boogeyman.
Yes, he wants to read his comic books. He wants to carve a fucking jack-o'-lantern. He wants to fucking make popcorn. He wants to do goddamned everything. And he's already spooked because his friends have his friends. The kids at school, who are probably not Tommy's friends, have instilled in him this fear of the boogeyman.
Yes.
And he had an encounter leaving school where he's pretty sure he ran into the fucking boogeyman.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave it right there.
Right. So Annie she has the popcorn incident. She gets butter all over her clothes. She has to wash them. But then the phone rings and it's her boyfriend, Paul. Paul can sneak out finally. So she's got to go and get Paul so they can come back to Lindsay Wallace's house so they can have some sex.
Yes.
Paul, who, it took me until about, I want to say 2010. I think it was 2010, 2011. And I started watching this movie routinely in 1998. So I came to Halloween pretty much on its 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
97, really. But right before 97 became 98. So
Yes.
So it took from about 1997 to 2010
12/13 years.
to figure out, to recognize that in the scene when Paul calls to talk to Annie, Paul is fucking John Carpenter.
Yes.
I mean, I never caught it. And I know his voice really well. I've listened to commentary tracks. And then suddenly in 2010, I'm like, hey, that's John Carpenter. That's John.
So we got the babysitter stuff going on. We jump over to the Myers house
Where
with Loomis and the
Sheriff Brackett, who is Annie's father.
Yep.
The other thing, before Annie left to go pick up Paul, she took Lindsay Wallace across the street to Laurie. So that Laurie's watching now both children.
Yeah. And we get flashes going back and forth between the girls and the Loomis sheriff situation, so we can explore the nature of evil.
Exactly.
We get one of the greatest monologues about evil that I've heard in film.
I met him 15 years ago. Was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no sense of right or wrong. I'm not doing it.
And
I've done enough.
Then we get,
but yes.
we get going back and forth with the scene jump, and we get Loomis outside, hoping to catch Michael coming to his former house.
Exactly.
The first time I saw it, I thought that was stupid, but then it sets up him being able to look the other way, and I don't know why I didn't look the other way earlier.
Well, I mean, that is the story of Halloween and Sam Loomis. It's look the other way, Sam.
Michael's got other plans.
Also, it calls into question the geography.
The geography of Haddonfield, yes.
Like, how long were Laurie and Annie driving around?
Well, long enough.
They were smoking
a joint.
Then again, Laurie tossed that out the window. They must have had a second one.
No, she didn't toss it out. No,
she put it in the center console.
She shoved it out and put it in the ashtray.
That's right. Okay, so
that
maybe that explains it.
She also looks like she doesn't know how to smoke a joint.
Yeah,
and neither does Nancy.
Yeah,
it's weird because I've never.
They both smoke it like
watch the movie, folks. Well, Annie smokes it like it's a cigarette, and then Laurie does this weird thing where she's holding it with both hands.
Well, I think that's acting.
Yeah, I think it's acting, but I think it's like.
I think Nancy Loomis Keenes Stevens maybe doesn't actually know how to smoke a joint and smoked it like it was a cigarette because that's what she thought.
Yeah.
You do. I think Jamie Lee Curtis has smoked a joint in her life and was playing a prude who would never knowingly smoke a joint, smoking a joint for the first time, and was holding it like it was about to attack her.
Like, yes.
So, I mean, one of those things is acting and the other isn't, is my thought process of those two actresses in that scene. I'm like, one of these two is acting and the other is not.
So here we are. We got the sheriff circling.
Yep.
Loomis outside.
Waiting to track down Michael.
Laurie watching both kids, and then Annie goes back to the house to get the car to go get Paul.
And she goes to the car. She goes to open the door. She realizes that the car is locked. She has to go back inside to get her keys, which she would need her keys to drive. But okay. So she comes back with the keys, and she opens the door without thinking, without putting the key in the lock, and the door opens up. She sits down and closes the door and then realizes that the door was fucking locked a second ago.
Yes.
And that's when Michael Myers, the shape, pops up from the backseat and strangles her to death. And this is where we see the payoff of Tommy's fear of the boogeyman and Tommy running into Michael.
Yes.
Earlier in the movie. because he sees the creature he ran into, this weird, disturbing man that he ran into physically, carrying a dead body into the house across the street.
Yep. And he wigs out.
And he, of course, sketches out because, as far as he's concerned, that's the fucking boogeyman. And he's right. In this case, he is right.
He is right.
But Laurie doesn't believe him.
Laurie doesn't believe him. Then we get Linda showing up with
Linda and Bob show up. Linda and Bob show up, and in such a way that the second they show up, beer cans fall out of the van that they pull up in. And they go inside.
I love how 70s it is.
It's so 70s. It's so fucking 70s.
Granted, I was only 3 at the
Right.
time this movie was released.
Sure. And
But-
I wasn't born at any point in the decade we're discussing.
But I just totally love it. I'm fascinated by the 70s, folks. Not that 70s show, but actual 70s.
Right. And Linda and Bob have a tryst in the Wallace family bedroom. And then Bob goes off to get some beers. Bob gets fucking killed.
Bob gets
the most iconic kill in the whole franchise.
Yes.
I mean, that's the kill that sets the franchise up and creates moments that that will be duplicated again and again and again in this franchise and in others.
However, it does set the franchise up, but that was not the intent.
No, not
This
at all.
is supposed to be a standalone movie.
It is. It is. But the moment that gives Michael some legs, that gives the Shape the ability to carry another movie and another and another and another, is the moment where he lifts Bob up, pins him to the fucking wall with a knife, steps back, and then admires his own handiwork. The fact that he tilts his head to the side and tilts his head to the other side and just watches what he did sets up a character who he could do anything.
And
Which is a fascinating thing, and he rarely delivers on that. He could do anything.
But it also sets up the prime question throughout the series, and specifically in this movie.
Yeah.
Bob is not a small dude.
No.
Bob is
No.
taller than the Shape.
Yes.
And
yes,
yet,
he is.
one-handedly, by the throat,
Yep.
the Shape picks him up and pins him to the wall with the butcher knife.
Yep.
Chef's knife.
It is a chef's knife. That is correct. It is not a butcher's knife.
And so is this guy human, or is there something else to him?
Exactly.
Is the Shape is not a big Shape.
No.
He's a skinny, frail kind of looking
Yes.
dude.
I don't know
not
if I'd
frail.
say frail.
But
He's definitely an average-sized person. Like he's not overly tall. He's not overly muscular. He's definitely, and he's not small either.
Yes.
He's very much nondescript, which is kind of the entire aesthetic of Michael Myers.
yes.
He is. You couldn't pull him out of a lineup. You couldn't say it was that guy clearly because he's this tall.
No.
Is that guy because he's clearly that muscular. And he has the mask on that is the most nondescript thing in the world. It's a white mask. It's a white face. It's blank. And that's a design ethos. I use that word a lot, but that they stray from after this film,
Yes.
because Michael becomes bigger and more of a muscular, burly killer in later installments.
Well, they are,
George Wilbur is a big guy when we see him in Halloween 4. I mean, they go under the size of this Michael in the next movie.
Yes.
But that's an aberration. And, in subsequent films it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then in remakes he's a fucking giant.
No, really,
He's ludicrous fucking tall.
So
But
we've
in
had
this movie,
we've had the iconic kill.
Yes.
And
we followed up with the other iconic kill. That's what I love about it. These two kills go back to back, and they both set something up about this character that gives him legs and makes him iconic. It's these two kills.
Yes.
It's not
not
killing Annie, and it's not hunting Lori. It's killing Bob and killing Linda.
Yeah. So we go from, is he human? Did he just lift that dude up with one hand by the throat, to suddenly he's nothing but human?
Mm-hmm.
He's playing a Halloween gag
Yep.
on Linda. He Charlie Brown ghosts himself
Yep.
with a sheet, holes cut in it and everything, wearing Bob's glasses over the holes that he cut, pretending to be Bob, and Linda expecting Bob, trusting that it's Bob, thinking Bob's being an asshole. She's finally had enough of him because he's not doing anything. He's just standing there with that ghostly image.
Yep.
So she calls Lori to find out what's going on. Where's Annie? Blah, blah, blah. We're not getting anywhere. And then
that's when he advances on her and strangles her with the telephone cord.
Yes.
Which is, not nearly as forceful as what he just did to Bob.
No.
If you think about it, the only character that he's actually forceful in the way he kills is Bob. He strangles Annie with two hands, but it's relatively. There's force involved. Don't get me wrong.
Well, as a grown up.
As a grown up, yeah.
Because
I'm talking literally the shape. Mostly he's a strangler.
Yes.
He doesn't do a whole lot of slashing. I mean, he when he's a kid.
Yeah.
And he does slash Laurie Strode a little bit in the arm.
Yeah. But
that's about it.
But the interesting thing is when he finally goes for the final Laurie kill, it's a choke.
It's a choke. That's what he does. He's a strangler.
So
they could have called it the babysitter strangler.
So while Laurie
Nobody would have seen that movie.
Laurie picks up the phone and immediately she hears choking sounds because the shape is choking. Linda.
But it dovetails on a scene that came before in which Annie called to talk to Lori and was chewing popcorn.
Yes.
I don't know why you put popcorn in your mouth.
No, she was chewing gum.
She said I had popcorn in my mouth.
She said she was chewing gum.
No. She literally says popcorn. Now you hear obscene chewing. She was talking about popcorn.
I've always thought it was gum.
She says popcorn.
Because she was chewing. Because that doesn't make any sense. Chewing gum makes sense.
Not really. I can chew gum and talk at the same time.
I really can't.
With a mouthful of popcorn, I really can't.
Why would you call somebody with a mouthful of popcorn?
That's the point I'm making. It doesn't make any sense. It never did. That's literally what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense. Why would you call your friend and then immediately put some popcorn in your mouth and then not talk?
So Linda dies.
Yeah. So Linda dies. Linda gets strangled.
And we get this. I like to pick apart individual visuals if you've listened to us before. Mm-hmm. And there's one of the greatest shape visuals out of Linda's death because he picks up the phone and holds it and cocks his head as if he's getting ready to talk. But he's wearing this bleached mask, and it's just this horrific image.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see this monster talk.
Yeah. Well, see, I actually want to take it back. I think there's also a very iconic image right before it. When, as he's strangling her and she is falling to the ground, she pulls the sheet off of his face.
Yes.
And it just pulls away, revealing that mask. And it's just, ugh. Because up to this point, we have not really seen the shape in close-up.
No.
We've seen him in shadow. We've seen him in wide shots. This is our first close-up of Michael wearing that mask. And it's right after the reveal. It's a magician's trick. It's a ta-da. We pull the sheet off, and here he is, revealed. And he's whatever you want him to be. And it's And it's a brilliantly shot sequence. But then you get that phone moment, and then he doesn't talk,
Yes.
which sets up what other people call in their analysis of movies like this the final girl circuit.
Yes.
And Laurie really is the first person to go on one of those. Like I don't really recall a final girl circuit in Black Christmas. Because those bodies are all revealed at we don't go on a tour of them like we do in Halloween.
No.
Or the Fridays. Or the Nightmares. Because that becomes a theme of the genre is you go on a tour of the dead bodies before the killer comes for you. That's how you know you're the final girl. If you find a dead body and then walk 30 feet and then find a second one, shit, get in the car and go if you can, because you're the final girl.
Which
Doesn't necessarily mean you're a girl. Perry Shen, final girl.
But
3 times.
I think in many
Twice.
Halloween takes the pre-existing one.
Yes.
From an amalgam of like Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw.
Yes.
And codifies it.
Certainly. But I mean, it's the final girl circuit is almost a unique creation of this film. The way it's structured and the way it's ripped off. So Laurie goes across the street, uses the spare key she has, because she's the most trusted babysitter in Haddonfield. Like, she has keys to everybody's fucking house.
Well, no, she doesn't. She tries to get in the front door and has to go in back through the kitchen.
I thought...
Because I just watched this 2 nights ago.
Okay.
And,
yeah, but you missed when Annie said, I had popcorn in my mouth. So, I can't trust your read on this.
She goes through the glass door in the kitchen so that we see that it's a full glass pane door. So that when she...
And then why did she go get the keys out of her bag? Because she literally grabs the keys out of her knitting bag and then goes across the street. Why would she have the Doyle's keys in her knitting bag? That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but they're the Doyle's keys because those are what she's reaching for when she comes back to the Doyle house to get in because she put them in her pocket. She goes, knocks on the front door, there's no answer, goes around into the kitchen, and then goes upstairs. Okay. Well, first she's... she goes through the house, the downstairs, calling for her friends, saying she'll kill you if it's a joke.
And then she hears a thump from upstairs and goes upstairs to investigate.
And we've seen this house.
You don't do that. You don't go investigate a strange noise. She creates the trope.
And we saw the house when Annie was babysitting.
That's one of the things that's really important about the way these films are shot. Because I just want to stop you because I don't know if you're going in the same direction, but you're bringing up a point that's very specific to what I'm about to say. Carpenter spends so much time shooting these houses and inside these houses and around these houses that we very clearly establish the geography of these houses. We know where these houses are. We know what's inside of them.
Yes.
We know every single thing we need to know about the layout of Laurie's house in the finale based on what we see of the house here. Yes. The stairs are the same. The turnaround on that second floor is the same. And we've spent so much time in the movie turning it around and learning the layout. And it's done effortlessly. Like, he shoots things in such a way that it's you, as an audience member, pick up on the fact that these are mirror houses without ever actually seeing that they're mirror houses. He doesn't hit you over the head with it, but it establishes a geography in a way that makes it connects it in your mind in a way that will not go away from you, and then, so that you know what's going on.
And then
it's good storytelling.
He also does it in such a way that while establishing that, he's establishing it lit.
Yeah.
So that you are completely familiar with it.
Yep.
When Laurie comes in, it is now dark.
Yes.
And it doesn't look the same.
No.
Everything is in the same place.
Exactly.
But it doesn't look the same because you're seeing it through the lens of a darkened room.
Yep.
That's scary as crap.
It is.
Like, it affects me as a viewer viscerally. Like, I'm in the room with Laurie. I expect the room to be a certain way, and bam, but it's not.
Yeah, and that plays out throughout this sequence.
Yeah.
Because everything that feels normal is meant to be off kilter, and everything that's off kilter ends up being normal. Down to the headstone on the bed, and PJ Souls' torso bent over in a cubby.
Yeah.
There's some contortion there that doesn't necessarily make sense. And Bob swinging down from the...
Yes, she goes and discovers her friends.
But this leads to what I think is the most iconic shot. And probably the moment that establishes, in most people's mind, Dean Cundy's fucking career. I mean, this is brilliant cinematography, and it's done simply. And that's why Robert Zemeckis wants this guy to do Back to the Future, and that's why Steven Spielberg wants this guy to do Jurassic Park, because he thinks on his feet and he does it cheaply.
Yep.
There's a shot as Laurie backs out of the bedroom where she has found the dead bodies, hits the railing of the stairs, turns around, and is sort of standing in front of this pitch black room. And then, as if our eyes are literally adjusting to the dark, we start to see a shape appear behind Laurie, and it is the mask of Michael Myers. And it gets brighter. And then he steps out.
Yep.
Slashes her down the arm, and she falls over the over the rail and down the stairs. And it's a brilliant thing. It's just a light on a dimmer switch.
Yes.
And it's slowly being turned up. Brilliant concept. And it literally does seem like standing there in the dark, and our eyes are starting to adjust, and it makes it feel like you're there.
Yep.
And now we're into the final girl chase. Michael's going to chase Laurie to kill Laurie. He's going to chase her down the stairs. She's going to have a little trouble getting out of the house. She's going to have to break a window.
Because the glass door that we saw when she came in, there's now a rake on the outside propped up against it.
Exactly.
And
she'll have to break out the candy glass.
Which wasn't
pane,
there when
which
she
is
came in. And
slightly different colored than the others. You can tell.
Always, I hate that. not just in this picture.
Right. While he's trying to get into the kitchen by punching through the door, which he succeeds at. But it doesn't... It looks like there's effort. This isn't Jason Voorhees just bashing through a door in one hit and sending it splintering away. Michael has to fight through it. And then she does get out of the building and runs across the street, and she can't find her keys. So she's, she's banging on the door. She's throwing a potted plant up at Tommy Doyle's window.
That poor planter.
That poor planter. And it is the longest amount of time between when Tommy Doyle wakes up and says he's going to come down and open the door, and when he actually comes down and opens the door. So much so that the actor, in a behind-the-scenes thing years ago, apologized for taking too long. It was cute. And Michael has chased her, but he's not moving very fast.
No.
Like, it's just across the street. Like, he could have grabbed her and pulled her back across the street. Oh, wait. I think Rob Zombie will do something with that.
So Laurie gets to the house, turns and locks the door, yells at Tommy Doyle to go upstairs. Get Lindsay! Go upstairs! Lock yourself in! Suddenly she is, when threatened, or rather, when the children under her...
children are threatened, yes.
There emerges a new aspect to Laurie Strode.
Yes.
Very forthright, very strong.
She takes charge instantly. She knows what needs to be done, and she's no nonsense about it. And that's very interesting that there's this about face.
Yes.
It's very telling of who she is. She is being tested and coming out on the side of being stronger for it.
So the kid goes upstairs.
Yes.
She turns...
Meanwhile, Sam Loomis has turned around.
Yes, finally.
At the Myers house and has seen that behind him the whole time is the stolen asylum van.
Yeah.
Station wagon. So apparently the Myers house is just down the street from Tommy Doyle's house.
Well, that would make sense because in the beginning we saw him.
We saw
walking.
Tommy walk right by
Right.
it. Yeah. So I don't know why Lori needed a ride. She could have just walked. But it was just an opportunity to hang out with her friend.
Yes, and to not have to carry the pumpkin.
Right.
Because she got a big pumpkin.
A very big pumpkin. But she apparently only had to take it 3 blocks.
Yeah.
So I'm not really fucking,
So
sorry for
Loomis sees it, and at this point he's starting going house to house and looking. The sheriff, I think, has come by, and he's like, "He's there in this street. You go around. I'll stay out front. See
You go around back. I'll take the front.
Yeah.
And Loomis starts going up and down the street looking for where Michael might be. Michael, Lori turns around in the house and realizes that one of the windows is open.
Yes.
And she is sitting on a couch, which is a dumb idea. But what do you know? You sit down. And then Michael pops up from behind the couch and,
and
he goes to stab her, and she grabs a knitting needle and puts it in his neck. Brilliant.
And he falls, and she contemplates her life for a moment, handles the chef's knife, and leaves it behind. Goes upstairs to check on the kids. Tells the kids, well, she killed the boogeyman. Well, I killed him.
You can't kill the boogeyman.
No, I killed him. And suddenly he's coming up the stairs behind her.
Because you can't kill the fucking boogeyman. So she tells the kids to lock themselves in the bathroom. She goes in the bedroom, locks herself in the closet, which is an accordion door closet with slats. And
he follows through.
through. She uses some piece of cord. I don't know if it's a tie from a dress or something like that. It's some sort of fabric-y cord. Cord not meaning necessarily a power cord.
No, I thought she got a hanger and untwisted it.
No, because she ties. It's some sort of fabric-y thing because she wraps it around it.
See, I always saw that as her unwrapping the top of the loops and straightening, so she got a hanger to a point. You can do that rather quickly. I've done it.
No, she did that to stab him, but to tie it so it wouldn't open,
Oh.
it was a fabric string.
Oh, sorry. I jumped ahead.
Yeah.
Because it's the exact same motion.
Well, yeah, because he knocks down the
hanger.
hangers when he starts stabbing through the slats. She's locking it so he can't get in with the fabric.
Okay.
Which is what I was saying. So she locks the door
and
so that he can't accordion the doors open.
And we get another one of those iconic
Yeah.
Michael Myers shots where he busts through and turns and looks at her.
And as he's sort of stabbing through the slats, he knocks down the wire hangers that she unfolds to stab him with, and catches the pull string for the light, and illuminates his face. So not only are we seeing his face in full frame like we did across the street, we're now seeing it brightly lit, and it's just William Shatner's face painted white, and yet it looks terrifying.
There's
something about that mask that just...
I have one that I had, and I had a horrible paint job. It was your old one.
Yep.
And I did a repaint on it. Mm-hmm. And there's something about when you layer the colors just right. And it's not even a good sculpt.
Yeah.
But it's fucking terrifying.
It is. And I don't know what it is about it. I mean, William Shatner doesn't scare me like that. I mean, William Shatner... fuck William Shatner, but... still,
so
I'm still mad at you, William Shatner, for throwing crouton at my head.
That's a story for another day.
For another day. Unless you're listening, William Shatner, and you'd like to hear that story directly, you can reach out to me at...
Because one day, don't worry, folks, we will deep dive Star Trek.
Oh, fuck, yes, we will. That's a franchise I want to deep dive on.
But Lori, with her hanger, does a 1,000,001 shot and sticks the shape through the eye hole of the mask.
Eye. And he collapses down, dropping his knife.
And then she grabs it and just gut shots him.
And he falls down, presumably dead. He's not dead.
He's got to be dead.
So, since he's not moving, she runs across, and she tells the kids to come out of the bathroom. They do, and she tells them to go out the front door, go down the street to the Mackenzie's house, and call the police.
And they do.
They do.
They head out.
They do. They do.
And she'll be right along after.
She'll be right along after.
Because she's a little winded. She's a little tired.
Mm-hmm. So they run out, and the act of them running out alerts Sam Loomis. There's something going on in that house.
And then we get the shot.
So he starts walking to the house.
And
then we get the shot. Of all the shots that we say are iconic in this is the one.
Yes.
This is the one that sums up this movie and every movie that comes after. Because the dead killer just springs up.
Yes.
Like just sits straight up.
From
effortlessly.
Effortlessly. He's lying down from waist up.
Boom. Just straight up.
Turns, spots Lori. Lori is hanging out in the doorway. He gets up. He's coming down to get her.
Yep.
He's done. No knife, whatever. I'm going to choke her.
Yep.
And he is going in.
And she's standing up she's catching her breath. She thinks he's dead. She thinks she's ready to leave. She starts to move to go down the step right as he pops out of the room and puts his hands around her neck. She flails, rips the mask off, revealing a perfectly normal person. And yet the audience reads terror on this face. And literally, it's a normal dude.
He's got an eye prosthetic.
He's got an eye prosthetic.
Because his eye's been poked at.
Because he just got stabbed with an eye. But
here,
beyond that, he's a normal guy. He's just a normal blonde-haired kid.
Here's my interesting take at this exact moment.
Yeah.
Right after this, because I don't even want to go into the psychology of what people see on first reveal. He has her dead to rights. Mm-hmm. He could choke her out right here, now, strangle her to death, but he can't because the mask is off. He has to pull the mask back on.
Mm-hmm. Because Michael Myers cannot kill Laurie Strode in this moment. The shape has to.
Yes.
This is set up all the way at the beginning. Michael's fury at the beginning ends
when the mask
is pulled off of him.
Yes.
And it starts when he puts the mask on.
Yes.
Michael is only the shape when he's wearing a mask.
And suddenly he's got the mask, he pulls it down, he's almost got it ready to go, and Loomis arrives on the stairs, gun out.
Just in time.
Starts shooting. Hits him. Boom. Hits him. Boom. He's backing the shape up. The shape falls out a window, out the balcony. Falls over. Lands in the yard. And then we get some crying.
He was the boogeyman.
As a matter of fact,
it was. And then Sam goes to the window and looks out. And there's no Michael Myers.
The shape is gone.
And we cut to the last place we saw him. And we hear this breathing. It's getting louder. And we cut from shot to shot to shot of all the places Michael Myers has been. And then it's over.
Yes.
We cut to black, credits start to roll. It's over. It's done. Michael Myers has gone from being here to being everywhere.
Well, that's it, folks. That's
Halloween.
That's
Halloween.
Wasn't Halloween. There was at that point there was not going to be a Halloween 2.
Nope, no 2, no 3, no 4, 5, Curse of Michael Myers, H2O, none of that shit. It was just Halloween. That was the story. Mysterious guy stalks the babysitter, gets shot, disappears, gone.
Yep.
Evil continues to be evil. The doctor knew it would happen the whole time.
He's been saying we didn't know what we were dealing with the entire movie.
Yep.
It's not a man.
And he's not. He's just not. So that is Halloween, and that is the most effective slasher movie in the history of slasher movies. Nothing is going to ever top it. I feel it's fair to say that definitively 40 years later. There's nothing that can be a fresh take on this because this exists.
Yes.
You can't get fresher than this. You can't improve much upon this because this came out fully formed, better than anything else that had been done prior, and better than most of what's come since.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a tough act to follow, right?
Yes.
But follow they will try because, as we're about to discuss, this movie makes a shitload of money because it's fan-fucking-tastic.
Now, it doesn't make Star Wars money.
No, but what
And Star
does?
Wars was a national release. We're I can't emphasize this enough. This was an entirely different era.
Oh, definitely.
In that this movie was not nationally released. It played in 4 cities. And then they picked it up and it played in 4 cities.
Right.
And then they picked up their prints and it played in 4 cities.
Yes.
At no point was it playing in LA and New York at the same time.
Right.
It was a regional
Exactly.
release. Like did the Southeast tour, the Southwest tour. And because of that, and because it was a B exploitative movie,
Yeah.
records of full what it made are still hard to come by to this day.
Yes.
I have seen figures from 47 million to 70 million
Yeah.
off of its theatrical release.
Exactly. And
Which-
there's no knowing. And we're never gonna. But there's and like I said earlier, there's a whole component to the profit of this movie that we will literally never know.
Yeah.
Because it's still making money to this day in a way that very few other movies are. Like, I can't think of a movie that gets a new edition every year and sells the bulk of that print run. Star Wars doesn't do that.
The only one that did it for a while was The Evil Dead.
Yeah, but not nearly to the extent of Halloween.
No.
Like,
Well, Anchor Bay realized how niche it was,
Well, yeah.
so they stopped.
and yet people will continue to buy new versions of Halloween.
Yeah.
New people will continue to discover Halloween. I mean, I'm sure Anchor Bay can give you figures if you ask. But they don't release that data.
No.
It doesn't cost... I mean, it costs money to make packaging. It costs money to print to strike a new run of a DVD or a Blu-ray. But the authoring house costs are not nearly that much.
No.
So it's a license to print money for Anchor Bay. And Anchor Bay has printed a lot of fucking money.
Yes, they
I mean,
have.
they've gotten a shit pot ton of mine. And they're going to get more.
Yep.
In a few days, they're going to get more money. And I'm not talking about, the new movie. I'm talking about buying Halloween again in a new format.
Because what are we going to see when we see it
Right.
in 4K?
I'm worried, though, that 4K is where it finally breaks down.
I could see that.
I'm worried that 4K is where you now see too much, and the illusion that you skirt at the highest possible definition is now lost. Because, now you can tell that that's overlit, or you can tell that that's painted differently,
Yeah.
or that's my fear with the 4K release, which is why I wanted to make sure that we recorded before I watched it. Like, part of me wanted to watch it and then be like, and this is what it's like in 4K, But then another part of me was like, what if
What if
that breaks the magic?
Yeah.
And I'm really worried about that. I'm really worried about that right before Halloween 2018 comes out. Or as we've been calling it here at the Ark North offices, Hate Teen.
Hate Teen. Although we've also over the last 2 weeks started calling it Hollow Green.
You've started calling it Halloween. I am still calling it Hate Teen. I'm not in on Halloween. I'm not doing that. That's you, man. That's you.
I've just gotten tired. I can't.
Hate Teen.
I introduced you to Hate Teen, and
when did you introduce me to Hate Teen? I came up with Hate Teen.
I came up with Hate Teen.
No, you didn't.
I totally stole that from the internet.
No, you didn't. You totally stole that from me.
No, because I read it somewhere.
No.
I
defy you to find that. You find where you read that.
I don't feel
you do
like
that because you didn't.
No, because if I did, I have to go through so many pages.
90% sure you stole that from me, not vice versa. But okay, not arguing that one on mic or off mic. We're done with that one. But yeah, so I'm worried that it'll spoil it. So I want to revisit the franchise fully. Before I watch Halloween in 4K.
Yeah.
And maybe I may hold off on watching it until right before watching Hate Teen. So that I can be like, okay, whatever damage this did, this other movie can fix.
Fair enough.
Maybe that's how that works. But we were in the middle of Box Office Corner. You were setting it up. Do you have a guesstimate?
Like I said, I've seen figures between 47 and 70.
47 and 70.
I'm gonna push closer to 70, but not by much. I'm figuring it was probably in the 50 to 60 range.
Gotcha.
And even so, if you take that money from 78, like 60 mil, just the 60 mil that's projected, put it into today's dollars, adjusted, it's the highest performer.
That does not surprise me. So I'm gonna force us to be, even though we've basically just been effusively praising the best horror movie of them all, the best slasher movie of them all.
Okay, thank you, because
there are better horror movies. I will grant that. Best slasher movie. I'm going to be pedantic and force us to follow the same structure we have followed for Crystal Lake, we have followed for Elm Street, and we have followed through Honey Island Swamp Tours. Favorite kill?
My favorite kill has always been the Annie kill.
The Annie kill? Interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the Annie kill, actually. That's okay. I'm gonna say the Bob kill. Tell me why the Annie kill.
The Annie kill is for me because it's in direct opposition to the Judith kill.
Okay.
The Judith kill is violent and impersonal.
And the Annie kill is very intimate.
It's very intimate,
close.
very personal.
Yeah, okay. I can see that.
Because he's been in the car, the windows and his heat, and it's supposed to be cold outside, they fog the windows.
Yes.
And they shoot through the fogged windows, so you don't, while you fully see his face. It's the first time you see his face in close-up in the mask, but it's obfuscated.
It's diffused. Yeah.
And it just creates this moment where it's intimate and powerful and deadly, and because it's diffused, he is the shape.
Yes.
This is the first time, the first kill for the shape.
Okay. I go with the Bob kill for sort of the opposite reason. Because it is the first kill that steps beyond what the shape is in this movie and points toward a larger, more ongoing Michael Myers. I feel like it's the first franchise kill.
Okay. It's the
paving
franchise
stone.
Foundation kill.
Yes, exactly. Also, it's the head tilt is very chilling to me. Some people have thought of it some people talk about it like it's, just admiring his handiwork. He did a good job. But it seems almost animalistic to me. It's like a dog hearing a noise. It's like a dog hearing a whistle and turning his head like, what's that?
Yeah.
Huh. And it makes him more monstrous, in my opinion. Some people think it humanizes him. I think the opposite. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Worst kill.
My worst kill is Judith.
The Judith kill is kind of lame. I'll grant you there.
Because I've seen so many slasher movies.
Yeah.
It's just such a simple knife. We talked about this in Friday so many times. It's just a simple knife stab.
It's not even a knife stab. I mean, what really happens is it's a camera track to an overhead stab where it's like Michael's watching his own, like he's watching himself.
I know.
Do it, but he's not watching the follow through. Like he can't watch.
And
that's
the turn from her body to the knife in the air.
Yeah.
Like it's almost physically impossible for a human neck to do that.
Yes.
The way it does it.
It is. I agree with that. However, I'm going to take a cop out on my worst kill, and I'm going to use the only one in the movie, the Phelps garage guy, the off-screen kill.
The off-screen kill.
What? There are so few opportunities to get away with that one in a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Because almost every death is an on-screen kill in a Halloween movie. I can't think of a lot of off-screen kills.
I can think of a whole police station of off-screen kills.
Okay, hold on. Fuck you. Okay, because we only saw 2 dead cops. Technically, look, having just watched Halloween 4, those bodies that are there, it really just looks like 2 guys. Like just look at it again when you rewatch it. It just looks like 2 guys. Like you see a foot, and then you see a hand, and then you see a dude's head, and then you see like a knee, and then you're like, oh my God, look at all these body parts. But then you kind of start to reconstruct it, and you're like, wait a minute, no. That is one complete body and one complete body. They're just arranged uniquely. But yeah, I think it's just 2 dead cops. Just 2. In that foreground shot. Now that I don't know about the rest of the shot, but in that foreground, it's 2 bodies. But that's a conversation for when we get to Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers. But before Michael Myers can return, he has to go away. And before he can go away, he has to, we have to see more of the night that he came home. And we will do that next time when we come back here for Halloween 2. More of the night he came home. For the Ark of E, I have been Matthew J. Blanchard.
I've been Patrick J. Blanchard.
And this has been part 1 of our ongoing series, Everyone's Entitled to One Good Scare. Thank you for listening, folks.